just said it was late and it didn't go like it was going live.
Ask can they hear us?
Can you guys hear us? I hit the live button and it was not live for whatever reason. It did not go live. So let me know. Linda Langdon, thank you for saying something because the rest of you guys didn't say anything. Okay. Well, I guess I don't know what happened. But anyway, we're here and we're about 15 minutes late for you guys. But we were on at 7 for whatever reason. When I hit the live button, it didn't go live. So go figure. Are you there now? Let me know if you're hearing and seeing us, and I apologize for anything that you may have missed. Let me know if you're still there and you're hearing us, seeing us.
Okay.
All right, let's just continue.
We've been talking about the chaotic self and the Christ child. Let's go all the way back what we were talking about, kind of touch on it. That when we came into this world in the womb, we were inside with all of the amenities, if that word amenities, that's what amenities of the Christ self. All of us are one Christ spirit. Now, when the Bible talks about, or we talks about the works of the flesh and the spirit, we're talking about one side seems to be of the physical, mental, psychological, and then there's another side that is spirit, which is of God. Now, everybody wants to put spirit, soul, and body, and then put Satan and demons and all that stuff in dimensions.
And I hope you guys can catch up. I know Pastor's already in the mode, and apologize once more for you not getting in here on time. We were here at 7, but when I hit the live button, it did not go live for whatever reason. So we have been talking since 7. And I'm sorry you missed all of that, but welcome. And yes, thank you for letting us know that you can hear and see us clearly. So you were talking about the child still, Pastor. You're talking about the inner child.
Yeah. Now, what I saw was the experience. Now, let me say this to you. Seeing the Christ, the true self, is one of the clues that covers everything from A to Z, from the book, the Course in Miracles, Bible, anything. Our true identity as the eternal self is the eternal potential abilities that are built into the package. And you've always heard me say, different cups, same juice. And what makes it divide itself up into 1, 2, 3s, and 4s and 5s, and spirit here and flesh there, and demons here and Satan there, and all that kind of stuff. None of that has affected us. Now, we've been taught some time back that the born again self needs to be delivered, or the Christ self needs to be delivered. All right, let's see it like that. If it does, it's because the side of the monkey mind, we call it, or the earthly mind, or the conditioning self, can only be freed in fullness by the recognition of the Christ child or the eternal self. It's different names we can use. We can say the still self, the quiet self.
Yeah.
We can say the
true self, the pure self, the divine self.
The divine self. You can say anything you want to, and names.
The God self.
The God self and the Holy Spirit self and all them. You can talk baptism of the Holy Spirit. Kundalini, and you can use all kinds of Eastern words and things like that. But when it boiled down, when the pinto beans it boiled down, when the water boils down, it's going to take us all the way back to the original self, which is God, Christ,
Yeah. Which is
without the ego.
Which is really the only self that there
That's
is.
it.
Yeah.
Now, we went through a deliverance session for 3 or 4 years in a certain place. And I can remember back that it would always end up bumping against something that kept us going around and around in a circle, trying to get all the demons out. And yet, we set up under many what they would call deliverance ministries. And some of you guys may have been in a brick and mortar where they never talked about that, or have done some of it. But most of everybody in the Christian circle talked about the devil is a lie and Satan is this and Satan is that.
Yeah.
And then when we get into the investigating into the scriptures, we find out that some of the things that we did, that the book never said it was done the way we were doing it, but we did what was ever needed to try to get somebody free. We've heard the demons talk, and we heard the Satan manifested, and the spitting green pea soup, and drooling at the mouth, and wrestling with them over in the night, and we built circles around them, and to cast them out, and to bind and to loose, and to loose the goose, and sprinkle oil and sprinkle water, and jump up and down. And then some of the pastors who were the prophetic area said that we need to get more power. We ain't living right. We ain't got enough this. There hadn't been enough this to make this happen. And it can really run you around the mulberry bush with a lot of these things. Mm-hmm. And you're still going to come back the next week, go to church on Sunday, get deliverance on Sunday, and get bound on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and start all over again for the weekend. Now, I understand that it has its place, but there was always a redundancy. We tried the music, and there are big conventions going on all around the globe right now. There's wars, and then there's the old Eastern wars and Israel and all that going on all around the globe. Everywhere, something is going on. Somebody is sick with cancer, somebody's dying, somebody's coming over, somebody's going across. Tragic things are going on in this finite world of the body-mind consciousness. Now, there's only one real identity, entity, whatever you want to call it, in this world. That's God. All the rest of it that comes and goes is not reality. Anything that has a beginning and an end is not eternal. Christ Jesus, Spirit, is the only eternal essence of all of us.
Yes.
Some use the book, and if you don't use it right, they want to fight you.
Mm-hmm.
And then they tell you can't get enough of what they got because you haven't been where they've been. And you can't get what they got until you do what they did to get it. We went through all of this stuff because we got 50 years of this stuff, and some out there are older than that, and some of them are right now are jumping up and down and shouting because they had breakthrough, because a preacher preached a certain sermon that woke them up, and they got the blessings, and then the next thing you know, they're back in the hole again, and they got to get something else, and it's never, ever satisfied. Right. There's no satisfaction at all. Wake up in the morning, get the blessing, and no sooner than time your head hit the pillow, you done lost it and got to get it back. Old boy said long time it's a gruesome saying, but started for it from the field, thought we had it, but we let it get away. And now we're starting all over again. Now, somewhere down the line, I heard somebody say, when we were preaching back in our 20s, they said, Sawyer, I knew it was more to it than what they was telling me in church. Well, I came and told you what was more than what was in the church, and you got that, and we're still not satisfied. We done read every book, went to every sermon, heard every preacher. He preached and touched on something, but you can't live like that.
Right. Right.
That's what we found out after waking up. You can't live like that. You can't live losing and getting something 24/7. You can't do that. And you're looking at, I never heard of so many preachers, got so many girlfriends, so many preachers preaching so many different sermons, and you got all kinds of courses going on online. But it's still when the water is boiled down, you got to come home. And the only home that I know of, well, now I want to live right so I can get in heaven. You done prayed all night, all day. You done ate all kinds of greens, collard greens, trying to clean yourself so you won't stink on the inside. Be holy, sanctified for God, and you done everything you can to clean out your bloodstream, get rid of the bacteria in the body. And I mean, you so squeaky clean that you when you walk, you squeak, and you can't stay in the bed because you're praying all night long. And I'm telling you, me and my wife have been through about everything that every last one of y'all have been through, and still come up on the other side. Well, what else? Now, here's my answer, and it's not the final one, but I'll make a good punch at it like the rest of it. There is in the same us, sitting here talking to the same you, that's us over here, the eternal spirit that cannot ever die. The eternal spirit that we are in essence cannot be lost and cannot be found. The illusion is in the mind. I look back over this thing and I saw Jesus Christ in my life as a Christ child coming into this world. Now, when we say Christ child, most people think about the perfect, no more demons, no more fighting, no more bad thinking, no more bad feelings, no more depression, no ups and no downs. In this conditioned self, watch this, that will never leave. I've settled my case. It's going to be there. But here's what I found out. I wrote my notes down. The chaos that's in this world, called the chaotic mind,
Mm-hmm.
and the pure self is next to each other in the same mind body house. The body, how many times have you been into churches where it seemed like heaven jumped up in that place and there wasn't nobody standing still that was jumping up and down and singing and praising God? But by and by, when the morning comes, I'm being realistic with you guys.
Yeah.
When I was a little boy, and y'all heard me talk about it, I saw all these people come into my house. And I thought that if I lived in somebody else's house that didn't have what I got into or grew up in, that their house was better than my house because they didn't have a lot of moonshiners coming through the bedroom, didn't have a lot of women coming in with men drinking and getting drunk and fighting and cussing and shooting and running people out of the house with shotguns. I didn't think Jesus was in the midst of all of that. But it's just been revealed to me that in the midst of all the chaos of everybody's life, he was there.
He's always been there. And he's always here. He's always here.
He's here now.
Can I read something?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm going to read this out of this book was written by someone by the name of Yogananda. He was what we call a yogi. And he had an experience with Jesus the Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And he began to write down from his conversations with Jesus the Christ some things. And so this is very interesting. This is the introduction. So I'm going to read just a little bit of it. He says, entitling this work, he named this book The Second Coming of Christ, the resurrection of the Christ within you. He says, I'm not referring to a literal return of Jesus to earth. He came 2,000 years ago, and after imparting a universal path to God's kingdom, was crucified and resurrected. His reappearance to the masses now is not necessary for the fulfillment of his teachings. What is necessary is for the cosmic wisdom and divine perception of Jesus to speak again through each one's own experience and understanding of the infinite Christ consciousness that was incarnate in Jesus. That will be his true second coming. There is a distinguishing difference of meaning between Jesus and Christ. His given name was Jesus. His honoring title was Christ. In his little human body called Jesus, the Christ child, was born the vast Christ consciousness. I'll read that again. In his little human body called Jesus was born the vast Christ consciousness, the omniscient intelligence of God, omnipresent in every part and particle of creation. This consciousness is the only begotten Son of God.
That's what we've been talking about in our 3 or 4 classes so far.
Yes. So when we talk about the Christ, we are talking about that aspect of us that is the Son of God.
That's it.
I'm going to read it just again because I feel like the emphasis of it is really, really clear. He says, there is a distinguishing difference of meaning between Jesus and Christ. His given name was Jesus. His honoring title was Christ. In his little human body called Jesus was born the vast Christ consciousness. That's what was born in the Jesus body. The omniscient intelligence of God, omnipresent in every part and particle of creation. This consciousness is the only begotten Son of God.
Ooh. Talk to me.
Yes. So designated because it is the sole perfect reflection in creation of the absolute Spirit or God the Father. So he also says this. I just feel like I need to read a little more. It was of that infinite consciousness, replete with the love and bliss of God, that St. John spoke when he said, as many as received him, the Christ consciousness, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. That's very clear, isn't it? Very clear. Thus, according to Jesus' own teaching, as recorded by his most highly advanced apostle John, all souls who become united with Christ's consciousness by intuitive self-realization are rightly called sons of God.
That's it.
Now, it's got a little more, but
Go ahead.
Read a little more.
Go ahead.
This is the footnote. He said, self with a capital S is capitalized to denote the soul or man's true identity. The lower self, in contradiction to the ego or pseudo soul, the lower self with which man temporarily identifies through ignorance of his real nature. Let me read it again. Self with a capital S is capitalized to denote the soul or man's true identity, in contradistinction to the ego or pseudo soul, the lower self with which man temporarily identifies through ignorance of his real nature. Okay? Self-realization is the knowing in body, mind, and soul that we are one with the omnipresence of God, that we do not have to pray that it come to us, that we are not merely near it at all times, but that God's omnipresence is our omnipresence, that we are just as much a part of him now as we ever will be or ever was, and all we have to do is improve our knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That is powerful. And that's the journey that we're all on. Coming to that knowing, that absolute knowing, where we're even when our minds, like you call the monkey mind, even when the mind is chaotic, it doesn't move us to the point that we start to doubt who and what we are. And that I have to say is the practice for us to come to the place of absolute knowing and unmoving, unwavering knowing. It's not a belief. It's not I believe this is true or I believe I'm that. I have to know it.
There comes a place where knowing experience overrides knowledge that comes through studying.
Yes. And I tell you what, I'm going to be very transparent again. For the last 3 or 4 days, I've been waking up at a certain time during the night. Now, I've done that over the years, but this particular season has been almost every night. And even last night, I would have slept through, but baby girl woke me up. She doesn't usually wake me up unless something's wrong. This time, nothing was wrong. She just woke me up. And so it's like it's become a pattern for the last week or so. And when I go into my room in there where I normally sit and read and get quiet, I'm finding that I cannot find anything to read that satisfies me. And I know why now, because I'm coming to a place where I don't want my knowing to be based on what someone else has said. I don't want my knowing to just be a repeat of someone else's teaching. I don't want my knowing to be something I've got to try to believe in. I want it to be something I know for sure. And so I pick up books and I look at them, I start reading them, then I put them down. And I find myself just sitting. And not necessarily anything spiritually going on. I'm just sitting. And I'm beginning to understand, as I said previously, you guys probably didn't hear it because we had the live button and it didn't go on. But anyway, I heard a young man say this week, that when we hear the scripture, be still and know that I am God, it doesn't mean to sit and not move. It doesn't require non-activity. He said, being still, the word still in that passage means to sink into. So being still and knowing is sinking into that knowing. Sinking into that knowing.
That's good.
And it's beyond what I've heard other people say.
Okay.
It's beyond what I've read somewhere else.
And listen to this. Who we are beyond the mind Who we are beyond the mind was before the mind.
Yes. Yes.
Who we are beyond the
Mhm.
mind was before the mind, and
Mhm.
any
Mhm.
spiritual warfare, you put it on the list from A to Z, from rooter to tutor. Who we are before the mind was before the mind.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We were and we were before any scripture, any book, any literature, any revelatory insight that we got on earth from the mind, any type of blessing, any type of miracle, healing, you name it, any type of gathering, church, you name it, revivals, um, big shot, little shot, no shot, and can't shoot. Couldn't hit a cow in the butt with an ironing board. We were before any of this as
Mhm.
the eternal essence, the eternal Christ, the Christ child.
Right. Right.
When you didn't even have a mind to see or hear any of this, you were still the Christ child. As a little boy, little girl, growing up, kindergarten, going to school, in school, high school, sixth grade, seventh grade, 12th grade, college, there is and was a part of you that was right inside of all the chaos of your
Yes.
mind, your feelings, your body, sickness and disease. The book said, if you've done it unto the least of them, you've done it unto him. When he was naked, you didn't clothe. He said, I am the least of them.
Mhm.
You are not going to tell me now that you got something to do to clean yourself up to where you can finally get what you've always been and you can't clean up enough.
Can I read something else?
Go ahead on, help yourself.
All right. This is from the same book, you guys. It says, likewise, what enlightened sages know about truth and spirit through the clarifying telescope of their intuition.
Mm,
Wow.
mm.
They know about truth and spirit through the clarifying telescope of their intuition. And it can be known by ordinary individuals only when they have similarly extended their vision by the use of their inner telescopic intuition hidden in the chamber of their souls. Which tells me I won't have true discovery until I be still, or till I sink into and find that knowing for myself. I will not see it. I will not experience it. I will not know it until I've done that.
Okay.
And it's not reaching outside of myself to find the answer. It's not reaching out to another book. It's not reaching out to another teacher, another video, another. All of those things are inspirational, but they don't bring you knowing.
This that I'm getting ready to say to you is the power of God over any darkness, demon, devil, you name it, witchcraft, voodoo, you name it. Before any of this dark, mean, the fall of man, Satan, demon, everything from the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, before any of this, you existed first.
Mm, mm, mm,
You existed first before
mm.
any of this stuff came.
Jill's asking this question, and it's a valid question. She said, is this the same as doing the inner work or shadow work? It You can do shadow work, you can do the inner work, and you can apply yourself, and you can uh, perform all kinds of practices and things that you can do to kind of bring your mind back into its rightful position. But this that we're talking about is not something you can work your way into. And the only work I would say, Jill, is, I heard this the other day. They said they did an experiment. They asked several people, and I don't know how many it was because I can't remember all the details. They asked several people if they would be willing to sit in a room for 30 minutes without doing anything.
Mm.
Or they could use this button that would actually shock them.
Mm-hmm.
They could shock themselves,
Mm-hmm.
or they could sit in this room for 30 minutes without doing anything. Do you realize that most of them chose to shock themselves? They could not sit with themselves for 30 minutes. And it wasn't because, I'll say it like this, it was because they couldn't sit with their own mind because it was crazy.
Mm.
The mind is crazy. But until we can drag the mind into that situation, that to me, Jill, is the inner work. Dragging the mind into this place where you must sit with it. And a lot of us are trying to numb ourselves and find things to distract us from what our mind is saying. I'll give you an example of what I'm saying. Young lady, the lady we mentioned that came and cleaned up our yard for us. She's has a condition, a heart condition, and a neurological condition as well. And this morning when I got ready to walk, I normally text her to ask if she wants to walk with me. And when I did, she texted me back and she said she was digging a ditch.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a frail little woman who really doesn't need to be out digging a ditch, but she was out digging a ditch. And so she decided to drop that and come and walk with me. I asked her, I said, why are you digging a ditch? And she said, I don't know. She said, my chest was tight and my head was bothering me, so I just dug the ditch.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so when you feel bad is when you work harder? And she said, yeah. I said, so that work takes your mind away from what you're really afraid to think about.
Mm-hmm.
She really is afraid to think about what's going on in her body.
That's her mind.
So she distracts the mind.
That's the mind.
With digging ditches, which is the worst thing she can do for her condition. Trying to escape it. At some point, we have to stop trying to escape that mind and look at it squarely for what it is and come to some terms with it. I don't know what that looks like for everybody, but this Christ inner child that you keep talking about, Pastor, at some point you have to come to grips with it. And not keep trying to run from it, not keep trying to push it down and suppress it or pretend or deny it or pretend it's not there or think you can override it.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be looked at squarely and faced. And those things that you face have to be embraced because it is a part of you. It is a part of you. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've been saying about the child. The inner child is the Christ child. It has to be embraced. It is a part of you. And whatever is wrong with it, if there is something wrong with it, it's wrong with it because of the things it endured in its coming through into this earth. So now we can heal it, but not necessarily heal it by getting away from all of the stuff. That stuff that's buried deep down inside of us. So my friend who I talked about, she uses all kinds of things she'll pick up twigs, she'll dig a ditch, she'll do whatever. And those are things that she uses to block out the fear that she has. The real fear that she has is she's afraid of dying. And she's not facing
and when
that.
she's
not facing
when
that.
I start talking about stuff like we are talking about now in class now to her, she says she don't want to hear
She don't want to hear it because she's afraid of it. And it's really time. I think she's around us because it's time for her to face that. It's time for her to face that. And I don't want to be the one to shock her into it. But I think it's being done a little at a time, just her being around us. Because I asked her, I said, don't you think that's not the right thing to do? And she said, I think you're right. She said, I probably need to go home and just lie down and take a nap. I said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So we numb ourselves, we distract ourselves with all kinds of things. Some of us do it with recreation. Some of us do it with drinks. Some of us doing it with smoke. Some of us do it with sex. Some of us do it with running around and getting in everybody else's business. All kinds of things we use to distract us from what is really going on because we don't want to face it.
When Jesus came in the book, the story goes like this. He opened a book to the book of Isaiah, and he read from that chapter about the Spirit of the Lord was upon him.
Yeah.
In the temple, there was an unclean spirit or somebody who was fully loaded with the idea that they were other than their true identity.
Mm-hmm. Possibly afraid when they felt the presence of God, afraid of that. Mm-hmm.
This thing in this man spoke out because Jesus was so locked in to his beingness that everything in the room that was not awake to their true self was discerned and it was revealed to him in that room.
Yes.
Now listen to this.
Yes.
The eternal self is not disturbed by the monkey mind. The trick is in the mind that if my mind is still thinking dirty thoughts, the filth and the dirt that I may have been in and been around, evil, demons, Satan, and all the chaotic ego, none of this can and will, what is the word I want to use? It won't disturb or infiltrate. It has never been able to infiltrate. Watch this. It has never ever been able to infiltrate the Christ child to the degree that the Christ child ceased to be the Christ child.
Right. I want to address,
in all of us.
Yes. I want to address a couple of comments, Pastor. John says, so the resurrection, was it yesterday or today? It's both. The resurrection of Jesus Christ and today was yesterday. Now today, the resurrection of Jesus Christ here in and as us is happening today. So it's both.
The resurrection is the Christ itself.
Yes, it is.
Not an event, not a stone rolled back, not a brick, nor a dirt. It was, Jesus said it in the book. He said, I am the resurrection and the life. So if there's any life in us at all, in the eternal essence, it's him.
Yes.
And that life has been the eternal self in every last one of it. Even the wars, the people are dying over there and fighting right now, and the trouble that's going on about the United States and military guys in our country, young people being wiped out. The Christ is in the midst of all of that, and yet he is not contaminated.
Yes.
And this is the blind side. The blind side draws our attention away from this Christ chef. Now, one thing I have settled: ain't no way in a ham sandwich with a bad piece of tomato on it that I'm going to be able to go all over the world and preach this, and everybody's going to wake up just because I done took up the cross, and I'm going to preach this to my underwears turned square.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway.
That I'm going to do this because I've been called. I dropped it. I done.
Right. Now we got a couple more comments.
Okay, go ahead.
Pearl said that's what's happened. That's what happened to a lot of people during the pandemic. It forced us to look at the mind of ourselves. It did, because we couldn't run from it. We couldn't escape it. And I like what Virginia says. Hey, Virginia, she says the mind needs to be healed. And that's what A Course in Miracles is doing for her. And I wanted to say this to you, Virginia, and to anyone else who's studying the Course or studying the Bible or studying the Gita, however you say that, all of the sacred texts, any of the sacred texts. When you do that, you are, as that higher self, taking your mind to that text for that to help it. So it is, you actually are taking your mind, Virginia, to the Course in Miracles to help it heal, because you are already healed.
What is disturbed by the chaotic mind? Watch this now. What is disturbed by the chaotic mind is the chaotic mind itself.
Yes. The identification
that part,
with that chaotic mind is what is disturbed.
That part of the mind, Miss Carter, that chaotic mind that needs to be healed is the chaotic mind separate and apart from you, who is not chaotic or is not sick. The Christ identity is not sick. What you're saying is that the Course is healing the mind, the chaotic mind. If you were to fully understand your full impact of identity, you would see that your Christ self is the non-disturbed self, whether the mind gets healed or not.
Yes.
What is hoping in your statement is that something will happen to the chaotic mind where you won't have to deal with it. Well, you don't have to deal with it. And I heard one sage say, you might as well make peace with it, because everybody is not going to be able to do what some of the sages say: stop the mind from thinking, bring it into peace, bring it into stillness. I've been trying it over and over again, and the only thing that helped me, Miss Virginia, is Virginia is the name that was given to the chaotic mind. That's not your name. That is a seal or label, like a policeman wearing a badge. But he's not the badge. He's just wearing something that gets the attention from everybody that looks at the badge and see respect for it. But who they are underneath of that is not even a policeman. I saw this. Once in a while, you'll get something. What is this to get sick and tired of the monkey mind talking all the time? It's the monkey itself. The monkey done got tired itself, and he puts it over on the ideal of the Christ child, that is the Christ child that done had enough of it. God ain't never had any problem with your mind being sick, and he ain't never had any problem with it making too much noise. You couldn't get on your God self last nerve, or your little bitty nerve. When the Christ child existed, when you were in a child state, the Christ child was going through every bit of it, from every boyfriend, every sexual act, every deed that was done, every mean thought, every whooping you got with the drop card, every cussing you got cussed out with, and everything you did before you came into any of this. You were still the Christ child without any disturbance. Now, here's your freedom. Put yourself in the right position, or may I say, if you don't put yourself over there, here it is. God has done it for you. He's the doing of separation. In other words, it's not by might nor by power, but by spirit.
I'm glad that
It's just no way.
I'm glad that God, when I would say we overuse the word God,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm glad that God has graciously given us many, many, many ways of dealing with this inner child.
Yeah, for each one of us.
And I mean, he's given us so many sacred texts, and we find it in the common thread in every last one of them. There are so many ways for all of us to deal with it. So there's not one way. My way may not work for any of them.
That's right.
But we can share it with you. But you must find your own way. You must find it. It's a path that is unforged. It's not forged, so it's not one you're going to see. There will be people who walked it, but they didn't leave the path open for you to see it. So you've got to find it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Every man has to find it. There's a scripture that says there's a day coming when no one will say, know the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Because every man will know him. Every man will know him. And it's because nobody can tell you how to find the Christ within your body and mind. Nobody can tell you how to find that Christ consciousness. But that Christ consciousness is what you are. But most of us are so heavily identified with our bodies and our minds, our thought processes and our feelings, so we can't even discover what we truly are. It's covered up by all of the things we think and all of the things we feel and all of the things we've heard, everything that's been accumulated. It's covered up. Mm-hmm. And so it needs to be uncovered. And only you can uncover it. I don't know how you will uncover it. I don't know what you'll have to do to uncover it, but it is up to you to do that. I want to read one more thing, Pastor, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead. I hope we clearing up a lot of things for you guys out there.
And if not, we're doing the best we can. Mm-hmm. But listen, Christ did not go through the sublime drama of his life merely to provide sermon material. Ooh. For generations of preachers and their Sunday audience. He lived, died, and was gloriously resurrected as an inspiration to others to live a divine life and attain in themselves his experiences of God and the afterlife. Jesus Christ was crucified once, but his teachings are crucified daily at the hands of superstition, dogmatism, and theological misinterpretations. The Christ consciousness of Jesus, free from such crucifixion, can be brought back a second time into the souls of all who make the effort to receive it. And he said in the beginning, with your inner telescopic intuition. Now, there's something that I do. I don't know if you guys have ever done it. You might have. My prayer life is a conversation that I have with the God that's inside of me. Mm-hmm. Literally, one voice speaking to another voice, and it's the same voice. And I realize it's the same voice, but it's one voice speaking to another voice here inside this head. I hear it. I have a conversation with the God that's in me. And it's an actual conversation. It's not, I'm praying, Lord, I come to you the humblest way I know how. Not that kind of prayer, because that's not how you converse. Sometimes he will ask me questions, and sometimes I'll ask him questions. And then he'll lead me to the answer. He will not answer me. He will not give me the answer, but he'll direct the conversation such that I will find and see the answer.
Watch this. Thinking good or thinking bad, thinking holy, thinking God, thinking Christ with you, thinking that you lost something, thinking what it would be like to get it back. All of that is the mind, and it has nothing to do with your infinite identity.
Yeah.
It is a mind thing thinking good. It is a mind thing thinking bad. It is a mind thing remembering the past. It's the mind thing remembering what is in the present moment. It's still take your shoes off outside the door and come in the house with no shoes on, plumb foot naked, and start all over butt naked or butt naked and come on in the house and start all over. None of this stuff is in the vernacular of the eternal self, to the degree that it will make your eternal self shut down just because you can't get your thoughts to stop thinking.
Now this is the what I want to drive home. And I don't want it to sound like I'm picking on anybody methodology or whatever they're doing to help themselves. I don't want you guys to feel that way at all.
Right.
There is no right or wrong way. I heard my good friend Oliver say this to us one time. Because of all of the experiences we've had, spiritual experiences, I call them impartations of our communion with Jesus Christ. Because of that, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times when we're pointing or teaching, it'll sound just like the course. Mm-hmm. He said that. I didn't say it. Mm-hmm. He said it'll sound just like the course. But we haven't read the course. So my point is the truth that you arrive at can come to you. It can be received through actual communion with the Christ consciousness. It can be received with actual communion with the Christ consciousness. It doesn't have to be an exercise, but the communion with the Christ consciousness will automatically impart to you truth, freedom, reality, non-illusion.
The ego self is a ghost with a bad toothache. It's trying to get us to commit adultery by believing that we are the chaotic mind, and switching back and forth is nothing but committing a spiritual crime that has beat a bunch of us with a leather strap of rules and laws that's been teaching in the church. You ain't cleaned up enough to have God in your life. You ain't ready for God yet because you're still doing it. Let me tell you something. If God was to leave your body, or you would leave your body, God would leave it. And God can't leave in this room because he's eternal, and so are you as the eternal self. What am I saying? I'm saying, I'm sorry, honey, but we are at the mercy. Let me say it. I'm trying to find words to say this thing. It's much more simple than what we've been hearing in the brick and mortar. It's much more simple than what we've been hearing after much study and meditation. Hey, it's much more to this than meditation and praying and seeking and knocking and waiting on God. Is more to it. Is nothing but the mind of God revealing what we're talking about to each one of us individually as a total sum experience.
Yes, 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 yes.
Do y'all hear what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If you were to see this right now, you would be totally free of every statement you could make on this site about what's going on in your life.
Mm, mm, mm.
I'm gonna be honest with you, baby. I mean, after since we got into this, I don't find it too much. I don't find too much to talk about now. I mean, I can talk up. Well, I do know this. I've been talking to the wife in the Jeep in the car, and she hear me say to my mind and everything, "Shut up." I'll tell it to shut up in a second.
You
But I didn't
will.
realize that's the mind telling the
Telling
mind to shut.
itself. Yeah.
You know, everybody study the Bible says, "Be ye transformed by the renewal of the mind." Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. That's the mind trying to renew itself. That's impossible.
Mm, mm. It's
The mind can't renew itself. It's a what we talking about is a God thing that's got to take place.
and it's so simple that we have trouble seeing it. It is so simple that I'll be honest with you. This sounds like passivity, but it is not.
It sounds, but it's not. It's not.
There's nothing you can do
If I'm
to
hungry,
become
if I'm hungry and can't
to
cook, I got to find
become
somebody to eat.
that Christ.
That's
Christ.
right.
There's nothing you
Nothing
can do.
No, no, no.
There is only a seeing.
You at the mercy of God.
Yes, there's only a seeing. That is what you are.
If everybody would come into this awareness, and let me tell you something, I thought I could preach it enough or teach it enough, and it would make everybody wake up.
Yes. Yes. But we can't.
Mhm.
We cannot. But we must
We can
accept.
only
But
present it to
but
you.
we must accept every being, whether they are asleep in their illusion. We have to accept every being.
Moo just said, all we're doing is pointing you.
That's what we're doing. Yeah.
We're pointing you in a certain direction. That's the
And
best we
our
can do.
pointing, and I know sometimes it sounds like we're coming against any other way
No,
of
we're not.
practicing.
We're not. No.
But our pointing is to take you away from having to put forth a lot of effort.
That's right.
The effort is not required, but there must be a realization. And that realization breaks in on you as you do, as you speak from consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
as consciousness to consciousness.
The dark side and the light side is all in George Lucas Star Wars. Star Wars is a good example of light and darkness, the dark side, the light side. They all are in the earth.
Mm-hmm.
They are all inside of us right now, the dark side and the light side.
If I speak as consciousness about the mind that's in this sentient being, I would say that it sometimes is chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
But as consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
I witness it.
Mm-hmm.
I see it.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe it is what I am. I do not believe what it's saying.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe or accept its opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So as I endeavor to not accept its opinion, not believe what it is saying, then I remain undisturbed.
Mm-hmm.
Undisturbed. Now I remember there's another spiritual teacher, sage, guru, whatever you want to call her. I don't know what she calls herself, but Byron Katie. Her methodology of dealing with this, her mind is this. She said, you always question the mind.
Mm-hmm.
She said, if the mind is chaotic and you find yourself in that position of being lost in the mind and lost in the thinking, and until to the point
that's
where
what being lost is.
yeah, to the point that you are now emotionally in an upheaval state. Then she says, question the mind.
Okay.
Is this that I am hearing or receiving from the mind, from the mental part of me? Is it absolutely true? And that questioning the mind, she said, a mind that is not questioned is a mind that's running amok. Because when you question that mind, it's kind of like
Inquisition.
when you question the mind and you ask it, is that absolutely true? And you answer whether it is or not, you will immediately disidentify with it. Immediately. So if it's taking you down a road of being disturbed, questioning what it is that's making you disturbed, is that absolutely true? I'll give an example. Someone who's got a condition and they're afraid of dying, like I mentioned my sweetheart Jan this morning that I talked to. Obviously, she's afraid of dying. If she questioned that mind, is it absolutely true that I am going to die today? You can't say it is absolutely true that you're going to die today. So you would immediately stop identifying with that thought. And then the disturbance of it would not have the same weight. It would not have the same influence.
Let me tell you something that happened. Years ago, when we first started out, we have a line of people come in, they come down the front of the church and they would give in offerings. And this young lady came down that we had never seen in the building.
Our camera really got off today, didn't it?
Yeah. And I said, it's okay, leave it on, honey. And I said, I never seen it. I said, I didn't realize what was speaking through me during that time and what was speaking through her back to what I was asking. I said, who are you? And the voice changed in her mouth and said, I am envy. I am this. I don't know what she said.
Yeah.
But it wasn't her real voice that came out of her body. I said, who are you? And I didn't know that my eternal self was speaking, asking this thing, who it was inside of the girl.
Yes.
And it spoke out of the girl and answered me.
Yeah, it did.
Whoa.
It was a part of her psyche. Part of her psyche.
And when it spoke, I jumped back and I said, oh, I heard that. I heard that. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your presence on this site and for the Cash App and all the blessings of financial support you are instilling into us. Right now, we thank you for the miracle blessing of God that's coming into our life through your giving.
Yes. Let us know.
We're going to leave it at that.
Yeah, please let us know if this resonated with you tonight. And if we left you hanging, then make sure when we come back together again that you ask a question or make a comment about it so we can address it.
When we coming back?
We'll be back Thursday.
At 12:30.
At 12:30 with Pastor Norman. And then again on Sunday at 10.
Making our rounds. That's all we can do. You guys are wonderful. No effort, no desire. Effortless, no desire. Thank you, Miss Linda. Thank you, all the little Linda Lees out there, and all of you guys. Hold it down on both sides of the road. Keep it in the middle. And it's working too. And we'll see you on the next turnaround. Okay, we'll be back. We ain't going nowhere. Just waiting to hear the next chapter on Thursday at 12:30.
Yeah.
Amen and amen.
In the meantime, we love you. Stay safe and stay blessed.
Okay. See you later. Bye-bye.